This is the Secure CyberConnect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information and cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance. Our topics on this episode will be reducing stress and burnout in the tech and cybersecurity sector. Today we're very excited to be joined by Dr. Sara Rabinovitch. Dr. Sara is a clinical psychologist, workplace wellbeing expert and entrepreneur. She's dedicated to enhancing mental health in high-performance environments, particularly within cybersecurity and tech. As a founder of Pacific Mindful Wellbeing at Work and co-founder of the EquiSkills App, Sara specializes in fusing psychology with technology to create science-backed, on-demand wellbeing programs that tackle stress, burnout, and engagement in fast-paced industries. With a Ph.D. from the University of Oregon and training at the Veterans Health Administration for Harbor UCLA Medical Center, Dr. Sara brings deep expertise in evidence-based mental health interventions. She's also extensively trained in mindful-based stress reduction through UCSD's Center for Mindfulness. Her work is all about empowering individuals and organizations with human-centered, psychology-driven strategies to navigate the demands of an AI-driven world. Sara, welcome to Secure CyberConnect podcast, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for the introduction, Jay.
Pleasure.
Jay and myself, I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I want to take the opportunity to commend you on your journey, your career, and your contributions to the sector, Doctor. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And before we get into the session, could you briefly provide a high-level overview of some of the key topics and themes that we're going to be discussing today?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Jay was saying, thank you so much, Warren, and thank you for your praise of my journey. And I want to thank you too. As I was saying earlier, when we were about to kick off this episode, I want to thank you for all of the tremendous advocacy work and the connection work that you are doing in this field of cybersecurity, that you're bridging this gap between technical expertise and connecting folks and building community, and the humanity of it is portrayed throughout. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do and for having me on this podcast. Let me give you a high-level overview of what we're doing. As Jay said, we're going to be talking about practical tools for addressing burnout and stress in cybersecurity, which is a huge, huge, huge problem, as each person watching this can personally attest to. And as far as the themes, we're going to talk about a variety of topics that really do plague cybersecurity. You know, you guys are you're the guardians of the digital world, and there's very scant attention paid to really using evidence-based mental health tools, strategies supporting you in your journeys, and it's critical. And so we're going to be talking about different topics such as how to kind of come back after we make a mistake, or cope with demoralization and disconnection and suspicion and stress when there's been breaches and cyber attacks and threats. We're going to talk about the role of self-compassion in our nervous system and actually reducing some of the reactivity that happens. We're going to be talking about connecting with mentors and others at networking events. If you're in cybersecurity, you might not be the most social and outgoing person, and that's okay. And talk about some strategies for making the most of it and combating imposter syndrome and much more. So stay tuned. It's going to be really fun.
Fantastic. So look, we always kick things off by asking our guests if they would share something that they may be proud or excited about that isn't typically going to be featured on their LinkedIn profile.
Oh, yes. I'm not sure if it's a personal question or a professional question, so I'll just answer both quickly. I'm so passionate and loving I have 3 little kids, and a wife who I love very dearly, and I'm very proud of them. And as far as a professional accomplishment, I realized I'm going on my 23rd cybersecurity engineering conference, where I work the conference and support folks with on-call mental health and well-being and talks and programming. And it's crazy that we're going on the 23rd one all over the place globally. And so I'm so excited, and it's a deep, deep passion of mine. So thank you for that question.
That's amazing. And yeah, knowing a little bit about your background, I mean, how did your experience as an elite athlete shape your approach to mental health in high pressure environments like cyber, and how does that perspective maybe help you address the challenges of that many professionals are facing within this field?
Such a good question, and I'm so glad you asked that, because it often seems like there's like maybe a disconnect between like, wait, how is athletics connected to cybersecurity? But, I think like elite athletes share a lot of the same like philosophical underpinnings and like motivations of cybersecurity folks. Like there's like great devotion to what you're doing and passion and an immense amount of teamwork that goes into it. You put a lot of you have a lot of accountability, responsibility, there's discipline. It's all about like skills acquisition and learning and executing. And it leads to a ton of burnout. And so like, just as like an elite athlete has to be super mindful of these stress fractures, these kind of mini fractures that if we don't attend to them in whatever way we need to, leads to much deeper injury. Similarly, cybersecurity folks have to be super aware of like the fractures in like their well-being, their physical health, your cognitive health and ability to concentrate and ability to cope, or else, unattended, it leads to ton of both like security risk, obviously, but also like health problems for the person and mental health problems for the person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a ton of overlap.
Appreciate you sharing. And obviously, in the wider tech remit, tech professionals, especially obviously those that work in information cybersecurity, they face unique pressures. And taking a step back from that, how big is the mental health challenge across the wider tech sector, and why is it crucial to address at this stage?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. It really is. And a lot of the folks that I see in my clinical practice, like, come to me after they have missed the stress fractures and have been working like doggedly through stress fractures and reach a point where their worlds just collapse. And it makes sense. A lot of people say, why am I so stressed who are in cybersecurity or tech? The question isn't like, why are you so stressed? Like, how could you not be so stressed given the on-call constant vigilance that it takes, the high pressures, the high stakes, the ever-changing economical context that impacts jobs, layoffs, transitions. Like the stress is oftentimes can feel insurmountable, and it's critical to address so that we can operate with resilience and security and continue to provide like optimal services to whoever we're servicing.
And for cybersecurity professionals, what specific challenges do they face that perhaps other technology professionals don't face? And why are these challenges particularly demanding in this field?
That's such a good question. And it is a huge one. And folks talk some, but often within cybersecurity about mental health, but there's some really specific challenges. And I think they kind of like overlap between the temperament of folks and the strengths of folks who are in cybersecurity, meaning like many folks who excel in cybersecurity have high attention to detail, are extremely self-disciplined, were raised in a way where there was very little margin for error. Often like there's a guardian kind of protector mentality that comes into it. And so you pair some of those qualities and characteristics with this huge task of protecting our digital world and being constantly on, and the vigilance and the fatigue that comes with being continuously alert is tremendous. And like the attacks, we take it personally, and it can lead to a ton of demoralization, cynicism, suspicion, burnout, paranoia, and really alienate cybersecurity folks from the world around them. And what a shame, because, to feel alienated from the world that you're protecting.
No, I certainly agree with you there. And we speak with a lot of leaders and professionals within the wider cybersecurity space that often have those feelings.
Yeah, they're very painful feelings too.
Yeah, and it's certainly, heading in the wrong direction, a lot of the stress and pressures that people are under. In terms of the future of mental health in tech, what does the sort of, the future hold for mental health resources? And we're hearing more and more about wellbeing programs within the tech industry, especially within cyber. What does that sort of look like?
I think it's so important. And I love seeing this influx of resources out there because it's critical. I think one of the biggest gaps is that there aren't enough evidence-based resources that are like tailored for cybersecurity folks. Again, like your question, Warren, I think was a really critical one, that like there are certain vulnerabilities and aspects within the field that lend themselves to needing a really tailored type of mental health support. not only just to address specific issues, but also like to address the personality type and the temperament and the values and goals of the individual who is a cybersecurity professional. And so I think we're moving towards, we have an app that's actually basically like Headspace developed for cybersecurity folks, which has been so fun and developed collaboratively with huge communities of cyber folks. And I'm really hoping that more tailored resources that are evidence-based and grounded in science emerge, because it's really needed.
And it's a difficult one to answer in one question, I guess. But for people who are interested in pursuing a career in tech, and let's say specifically within cyber, what advice would and could you give them to proactively address their mental health and ensure that they have as much long-term success as is possible?
Well, that's a good question. I think on I guess a two-part on the broader basis, I think the importance of modeling being vulnerable about mental health, especially for leaders in cybersecurity, and saying, I'm really struggling with this mental health issue, and this is what I'm doing to address it, to create a culture where mental health isn't stigmatized, but where it's like taking care of oneself and managing stress becomes routine for practice. It's simply good for business, obviously. And so being vulnerable, talking about it, providing folks with resources to model this culture so that when folks consider coming in and associates and junior level cybersecurity professionals enter the field, there's already a culture that like normalizes talking about mental health. As far as like ways to sort of monitor one's stress and mental health, therapy's not for everyone. And like, I always say that, and that's okay. And they're like, wait, you're a psychologist bashing therapy? No, I'm not bashing therapy at all, but it's not for everyone. And I think the importance of community and connection and belongingness is so important for folks in this field, especially because many folks are working remote in a way that we can really get lost in our own sense of like derealization and kind of lose connection with other people. And, we know that there are, when that goes too far, folks become suicidal, they become isolated and withdrawn and disconnected from life. And there is always help and there's always support out there. And community is like the antidote to all of that.
Absolutely, 100%. And, in terms of I guess, managing, stress management strategies, if you will, and helping people recharge, can you maybe share a method or a tool that's been especially helpful in relieving sort of feelings of demoralization and burnout, and maybe, people can use after dealing with cyber threats, for example?
Yes. I think like the one piece is a continuous practice of, again, like monitoring for those stress fractures, those like backdoor threats, if you will, that we're not even really aware of if we're not in touch with our landscape of our body and mind and emotions and, situational awareness. So there's that piece. And then there's a separate set of skills that we can use like in the face of coping with demoralization after a threat. For the first piece, like, may I take us through a very brief mindfulness practice to demonstrate it?
Sure, absolutely. Right.
Okay, I'll take you guys through it. I don't know, you can close your eyes or not.
We're looking forward to this part of the session.
So this is called the mindful check-in, and I think it's so important. It really is about taking your pulse, so to speak, mentally, emotionally, and physically to see how you're doing and what you're needing. And so getting into a comfortable position and feeling free to close your eyes or keep them open, whatever's comfortable. And just taking a few long and slow breaths, allowing yourself to transition inward. Noticing how your body feels against the chair. The weight of your body supporting itself. And feeling your breath coming into the body and leaving the body, breath by breath. And taking a moment here to check in on how you're doing. asking yourself, how does my body feel right now? It's here physically for me. Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it tense, tight, or loose? There's no pressure for things to be any other way. We just sort of tune in and notice what's here in the body. With a lot of kindness, and then shifting attention into the mind and mood and being as kind and gentle and curious as possible, just noticing, how's my mood right now? What emotions might be here? Is there a heaviness, a lightness, something else? A numbness even, and that's okay too, just noticing. And what thoughts are here in the mind? What's my quality of thinking right now? Are thoughts racing or slow? Are they clear? Are they more muddy or harder to differentiate? Just tuning in. And then asking yourself, having taken stock here of what is here, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? And there's no pressure to think too hard on it. It's incredible how your body and heart have all the wisdom you need already. What am I needing right now in this moment? Listening to what arises. Is it a nap? Is it a walk? Is it a hug? Is it some exercise? Is it solitude? Anything else? A meal, water. And opening your eyes if they're closed and coming back into the space around us. And there's no pressure to do the thing you need right now. And if you have a moment to, it could go a long way, and honoring that it might not be the time. So we're sort of taking the pressure off of this emphasis and saying, like, what do I need? How could I get curious here to really take care of these stress fractures, to get familiar with them?
Absolutely, and I guess the first question I'd ask after that is, can we have you on the episode every day?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I imagine too for you too. Not you guys are in the UK. I imagine it's nice to kind of come into yourself after a long, busy day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm sure our audience hopefully will get something from that for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly something that's powerful, good experience from my perspective as well, and it's much similar to something I practiced quite a while ago, taking sort of a longer breaths in, 6 seconds in, and then 8 seconds out over the course of 2 minutes. A lot of my friends that have served in the military have practiced those sort of breath calming techniques. So do appreciate you sharing with myself, Jay, and the audience in that respect.
Oh, yes, I love that. And it's so tuning into the nervous system. That's so cool. And it makes sense for military personnel to be doing that. Yeah.
Well, it allowed me to come to clarity that I should be going back to the gym. I really need to push myself physically and push myself to the brink of breaking, because there's a sense of reward at the end of that when it comes to physical exercise. So the few minutes that we had to sort of get our own minds then give me a bit of clarity. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Oh yes. And we take shoulds out of it. And you said like I should get back to the gym because like there's so many shoulds that we have. Like I should go to the gym. I should eat healthy. I should take a break so this alert fatigue doesn't take me under. And like the shoulds actually demotivate us often. Like to say I could, like here is an option. This is what my mind and body are telling me. Like I need that release. I need that sense of physicality. Like this is an option for me. Actually increases motivation a ton. There's openness. Anyway.
No, definitely, certainly agree with that. And, all of us, professionals in the tech and cyberspace, as well as recruiters, for instance, we've got that imposter syndrome, that managing self-doubt and tackling perfectionism. There was something that, I know I struggle with. I don't want to speak for Jay, but a lot of the individuals that I talk with in the technology space, they really struggle with that as well. So, Doctor, from your perspective, how would you recommend overcoming the overwhelming feeling of imposter syndrome that often impacts high-performance security professionals? And of course, self-compassion. What role does that play in combating harsh self-criticism?
Those are such good questions. And, a lot of in developing this app, and there's like 100 mini modules, like so many of them are around self-compassion and how we change our relationship with ourselves in the face of like strong self-criticism and imposter syndrome that comes up. I think for addressing imposter syndrome, the first thing to realize is that like even the most seasoned professionals, cyber professionals, any professionals experience imposter syndrome. Like truly, it is a phenomenological universal experience that like imposter syndrome is something we feel, and it's a mentality, it's a body response, and it's often triggered by all sorts of different things, whether that's workplace triggers or such as like public speaking or having to present to C-suite or leaders, whether it's being new to a firm and coming in, and whether it's being at a networking event and noticing that you're around all of these like tremendous thought leaders and you don't know, and suddenly this sort of sense of self-consciousness comes over us, a sense of shame. And so we can kind of first be aware of like the fact that we're not alone in feeling this way and saying, okay, everyone feels this way sometimes. And I think too, within cybersecurity in particular and tech, but in particular, acknowledging that like the community is very open and welcoming, and that even the most prominent thought leaders have started somewhere and started where you're at, and assuming that folks want to mentor, and that like if you are in the business of learning and you're curious, that like that is where to start, and that is celebrated in tech and cybersecurity, especially in technical domains. And so coming in with curiosity, coming in with some self-compassion, and like seeing if we can expand our thinking. I think like the biggest contributor to perfectionism and also overlapping with this imposter syndrome is like kind of a rigidity in thinking, meaning that like we get stuck in this train of negative thinking, this loop, this rumination cycle that becomes super automatic and habitual. We notice ourselves immediately going back down that road of like, I don't know anything. Everyone knows more than me. Everyone's seeing that I'm a fake. What if I make a mistake? All of the kind of typical thoughts, and they're unique to each person that we might have. And to notice it and say, hey, okay, here I am going down this path. What triggered it? All right, I'm noticing that like, I'm feeling like I haven't been doing my best at work, or I got some negative performance evaluation or some constructive feedback. And so of course it's triggering this familiar path. So noticing it, and then seeing if you could pick up your skis, and think a little more flexibly to say, okay, two things are true at the same time. There's a lot of tools in the app that are about increasing this type of thinking. Okay, one thing that's true is that right now I'm feeling like that I don't know anything at all, and that I am never going to make it in this field. And at the same time, I'm acknowledging that here I am, and I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't have the skills and competencies that are needed. That both are true. And we're practicing this again and again, noticing, going down that rut, saying, here I am, picking up our skis and saying, right now, two things are true. One thing that's true is that I made this mistake and it cost the company X amount of dollars and I'm feeling all sorts of shame and guilt and remorse. And at the same time, I have prevented so many attacks and threats that both are true at the same time.
Yeah, and what I'm getting is know yourself, accept what you can control, and of course, move forward.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of saying it. Accepting yourself and moving forward as best possible. And it's so hard to do also.
You've given up that control, because I know it's something that a lot of individuals struggle with, really accepting that some certain things are out of our control. So we need to take a step back and perhaps not stress about them too much.
Totally. And because, we know that trying to over control when we misapply, like cybersecurity professors have so much vigilance and attention to detail and have so much control in a way over the environment and surveying it. And when we misapply that vigilance and that kind of detailed threat orientation to internal states, like, feeling sad or feeling anxious or feeling shame, that's sort of when we spiral into a really dark place. We're kind of like misapplying a very important tool that not everyone has, a strength, to mental health and well-being. And it doesn't fit because we're trying to over control ourselves when we really need acceptance and self-compassion in those moments. So thank you for bringing that up, Warren.
And following on from, what you just been saying about very detailed oriented, I guess, individuals within cybersecurity, myself struggle with, the question of how can you distinguish between being rigid and simply being highly structured? Do you have any, I guess, advice on that side of things?
Yeah, I do. I have the app. I created this algorithm based on like all these different, what various cybersecurity folks told me about, like how do you tell if you're being really rigid or if like you're someone who prefers order and structure and you reap the benefits of this. And it's a personal question. And I think a lot of the clients that I work with come in and say, like, they're offended. They're like, my wife, my spouse, my partner, my friends, whoever said like I'm a rigid person. And it's like offensive. It's like, I'm not adventurous, or I'm too critical of other people and too fault finding. I'm sure people in the audience right now are thinking, oh gosh, that's me. But like, I want to validate it. Like, that's actually really painful, especially when at the same time, certain people in your life might also very likely be saying, you be the one who like make sure all the finances are taken care of, make sure that all of these T's are checked, make sure that you're kind of keeping our lives together, make sure that you're this watch person who's kind of looking out for all potential threats. So it's a catch-22. It's like, oh, well, you want me to be someone who's protecting the digital space and protecting life, and you also want me to be this kind of free floating person, and I can't be both. And so we can get in this place where we feel like at odds with ourselves. And when we're at odds with ourselves, we might double down in a way and say like, well, you know what, my way is the way. So, because that's what we do as humans. My way is the way. And we might become even more rigid if it is rigid that we are, or maybe it's just preferring order and being detail oriented. And so we can ask ourselves like, okay, what are the benefits of me being someone who prefers order, who's detail oriented, who's threat sensitive? What are the cons? Okay, like in what context does it help me? In what context doesn't? In what way are these ways of being? And I talk about routines a lot with clients. Like, in what ways are these routines that are often like pretty structured, a daily routine and work schedule and way of going about things? In what way is this helping you achieve your goals? In a lot. In what ways is this kind of detracting from perhaps well-being, enjoyment, connection with other people? And so it's really it's an analysis. We're looking at pros and cons. It's always a risk to shift, and we can try little by little, collect data and see where it lands, but there is no right or wrong in this.
No, it's a balance, as it is always the way. And is there any other way that maybe tech professionals can introduce more flexibility without compromising on the security element? I think that's probably the challenge in this sector. How do we do that within cyber?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because again, like one of the huge benefits of being highly vigilant and structured is like that. I mean, it's critical to performing security measures. And so And at a certain point, without break, there is, the research shows, like a ton, if we don't take like systematic breaks, like it does compromise security. And so I think reminding ourselves of the research and that like we actually really do need breaks, and they can be brief breaks and here at these increments, and knowing the signs of alert fatigue is so important, and creating external accountability reminders to take little breaks. Like, I don't know, some of the folks that I work with, like we have little like stickers that they might put on there, or an alarm and a sticker on their computer that says like, hey, do you need a break? Are you noticing mental fogginess or something like that? Holding each other accountable. So, we might set alarms and have like teammates say like, hey, when was the last time you took a break, buddy? Come on, take a break and I got your back. And so reminding each other and making it an important part of like security measure that isn't a luxury, that's actually like a critical necessity.
That's a collective approach, something myself and Jay talk about quite often. Technology and security is always a team sport, and you need to be helping those around you on the way. I think that's what distinguishes those individuals that are good and those that are great. Something I learned earlier in life is that great individuals elevate and advance those around them, and that helps them collectively excel. And we've spoken at length with a number of other guests in relation to the importance of that social contact and attending events and conferences, for instance. But we haven't addressed some of the critical issues that affect many within the technology and cyber field. And that being that sometimes events, conferences can be often overstimulating. So, Doctor, could you share with us some techniques that can help professionals recover and manage sensory overload during these events?
Yes. This is something that when I work at these events, and folks can contact me the whole time for little skill sessions or to talk about something happening at work, or like to, in an acute sense, like having a panic attack or feeling totally overloaded. So this comes up all the time, and it's so overwhelming, even for me. And I'm pretty extroverted, like, going to DEF CON, and there's so much happening. And especially if you're working remotely, it's like a total barrage on the senses. And so I think a few things are important, like building in sensory recovery periods, knowing yourself well. You said that earlier, Warren and Jay, you were sharing about like knowing things to be true about you, like knowing what you need and how much you can take, and pacing yourself. And I think it's like some of the coolest strategies for managing sensory overload. It really depends, like whether it's a remote event or whether it's in person. I always talk about stairwells, which I know sounds crazy, but like there's nothing quieter than a stairwell often. Like like going into a stairwell, taking a sensory recovery break in there. There's clear earplugs that even putting one in your ear, and no one can see it, putting one in your ear like massively reduces the amount of stimulation that you're taking in. Putting on sunglasses when you as you're walking outside, like massively reduces the amount of stimulation you're taking in. So there's all these like kind of physical things you can do. And also reminding yourself that like you need breaks to pace yourself, and that there is no pressure to learn everything, to attend every talk, to learn every technique, to, like giving yourself space. And I think there's some low stimulation activities that are really cool to do at many conferences, like Capture the Flag, where you're sort of like in your own zone, and Lockpick Village, and all sorts of villages where you can kind of come back to yourself and activate that introvert's high focus brain to give yourself some peace and quiet.
I appreciate you sharing. And for cybersecurity associates that are perhaps still doubting themselves and don't make the most of these opportunities, how can they make the best and most out of these networking and learning opportunities?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it's intimidating too, especially like if you're down on yourself. I know a lot of folks who come to conferences are like sometimes between jobs, like recently had a layoff, and they've learned of all sorts of layoffs coming in, and they're like super anxious. And so they're wanting to prepare, and it puts even more pressure on someone, and you might feel even more of an imposter. And so like knowing that you're not alone in that, first off, of course, because it's a huge issue, and taking little social risks. This is an interesting strategy, but I want to share it because it actually goes a long way. Oftentimes when we're feeling like threatened by other people socially, whether it's because we were recently laid off and we're around prominent individuals in the field, or we're someone who like is just more socially anxious and, you know, it's harder to interact. Maybe we're neurodivergent, who knows? Like the biggest tip I have is activating what's called the social safety system. So it's the kind of ventral vagal system that makes us feel safe inside of ourselves while we're around other people. And at a busy conference, no one can hear you hum. I know this is a weird strategy, but it's very effective. Like no one can hear you hum because the larynx is associated with the ventral vagal system for making us feel like calm, self-assured. If we can activate the larynx in some way, we're actually going to feel much calmer in our bodies around other people, even if there's a lot of stimulation. So you guys can do it with me. No one can tell you're doing it. You're just walking, you know, from like table to table or, you know, entering a talk. You guys do it and you'll notice a shift in your nervous system. As you breathe out. Do you notice that?
Yeah, definitely. The power of vibration, something I believe in personally, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So give it a shot. It's science-based. It's very cool.
I appreciate that. And look, one other issue that we find really common with technology and security leaders, professionals at all level, is procrastination. It can be a significant barrier to productivity. I speak on this on my own behalf, my own experience. So, Doctor, what strategies can cybersecurity professionals use to combat it and stay on track?
Yeah. It comes up so much. And, you know, at the core of procrastination often is fear of failure. That comes up so often that we often think of it as like, I'm lazy, I'm undisciplined, I'm this, but at the core of it really is often like fear of failure and fear of not meeting our own internal expectations and fear of not meeting someone else's expectations or external expectations. And so I think coming at it from that angle is really helpful because what we need is often less discipline to beat procrastination and more self-compassion. That we can say to ourselves, hey, you know, I really need to get on this and I haven't done it. And okay. And I'm really overwhelmed by it. Often there's like a state of overwhelm. First, like, you know, taking a breath and checking in with ourselves, bringing some compassion to ourselves. Like, hey, you know, like this is scary. Like I'm worried I'm not going to meet this deadline. Okay. And I'm worried that I'm self-sabotaging now. Giving yourself some friendliness, some kindness, some understanding. And then I think the most helpful tool for getting started when you're overwhelmed by a task or overstimulated by multiple demands is actually like the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule is like, you set a timer for a minute, you throw all the tasks you have, all the steps on a piece of paper, you prioritize them based on time sensitivity and how big the negative outcome would be if you didn't get it done now. And then you choose one step that is 2 minutes or less. And you only do that one. And you just start there. You do those steps. And 99.9% of people then do the next step and then do the next step and then do the next step. And you just do the next thing. But breaking it into those 2-minute chunks and starting with just the goal of doing one thing that takes 2 minutes is enough to get the snowball going.
Yeah, I think the positive reinforcement from those quick low-hanging fruit and those wins, you know, those small steps add up, don't they? Analogy I always use, you know, how can you best eat an elephant in this one bite at a time? You can't just do it with one.
Yes, that's a great way of saying it. Yes.
And for tech leaders and security leaders, you know, how can they perhaps motivate their teams and inspire them to ensure that they're maintaining high performance and, of course, you know, high level of morale?
Yeah, I think there's so much pressure on leaders. I work with a lot of tech leaders and a lot of C-suite who are so stressed because of the demands of the economy and changing policies, and they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I really honestly think the first step is for leaders to take care of themselves and to say, like, I have so much pressure on me. Like, this is so much, and to take care of their own stress fractures and to take care of their own mental health. And with the notion that, like, it is like truly unquestionably the case that when we take care of ourselves and our mental health and well-being, it skyrockets performance and productivity. And so starting from a place where like you experientially know that to be true and letting that trickle down is so important. One of the most important motivators that I think in tech we kind of miss is the power of, like you're saying, more positive reinforcement and praise. We often think if I praise people, I'm going to be like pegged for favoritism, or I am making people complacent, or they should do that anyway because it's their job. So why am I praising them for what they already should be doing? You know, all these different things get in the way, but the power of positive reinforcement and verbal and nonverbal praise goes a long way. It's like in the literature of psychology and behavior change, over and over, praise the things you want to see more of, shine the light on them. So I would highly recommend that too. And vulnerability, you know, sharing your own personal struggles in a way that feels right. What the research also shows is that like we trust leaders and managers and bosses so much more when we see them as human and authentic. And so building that trust and buy-in so that your folks can receive constructive feedback and trust you is going to be really important too.
And, you know, looking at this from a different angle, I mean, do you have any sort of unconventional viewpoints or maybe even controversial views for those who need to be held more accountable for adapting mental health challenges in the tech sector, for example?
Yes, I have so many unconventional viewpoints in this world and in my work, but I'll leave those out of it for the sake of controversy. You know, like what I would say is my whole career is built off of understanding people and understanding even like the most, what we might think of as like egregious behaviors, you know, like asking ourselves, like, why does it make sense? Not like, why did they do this? Why are they making these decisions that are like negatively impacting a bajillion people? Like asking the question, like, why does it make sense? Okay, why from their perspective would it make sense? And what would need to happen to have them do something differently? What would need to happen to do something different? And like really sticking with behaviors and describing behaviors and thinking about what motivates people and then showing understanding. Like it makes sense that like, you know, you've cut your entire EAP program because like you're really needing to put a ton of money into XYZ program. And that makes a ton of sense. And at the same time, like, you know, there is a lot of research showing that, you know, employee assistance programs are super helpful when it comes to like fueling productivity and increasing retention. And like that might not be in the cards. So kind of using an approach that's curious, behavior driven, and non-judgmental and based on fact instead of fiction or accusation usually goes really far.
Absolutely. And look, just looking at your own journey in finding and founding, you know, Pacific Mindful Wellbeing at work, and the mission and the vision and the purpose behind everything you do. You know, do you want to talk us through a little bit about that? Maybe, you know, and also where you see the future, you know, going with.
Yeah, I'd love to. I am currently in the Goldman Sachs Founders Program, and it's so helpful. It's a year long. And so we're like 9 months through. And so I've been thinking a lot about this journey and, you know, like from being a professor to being a meditation teacher and all the above. This journey is so from my heart. I mean, that is like the key piece for me is that like, I always let my heart drive my business decisions. And people say, you know, oh, wow, like that's kind of a stupid business move, but it's not, because my work never feels like work. It feels like passion. It feels fun. It feels enlivening. It feels connecting. And thinking about my mental health work with cybersecurity and my work with a lot of engineers and tech professionals on the technical side who are doing a lot of the technical work, like I absolutely love it because I couldn't be more different from someone who's in some ways as an athlete I can understand, but I am not a perfectionist. I am not super threat sensitive or detail oriented at all. I really need to be more. And so what I love about working with tech and cybersecurity is that there's a beautiful synthesis that happens where like these two sides kind of meet, and like, I don't know, it's very inspiring to me to learn about the mentality and to help people who are really down on themselves and have imposter syndrome and are frankly killing it professionally find the self-compassion to thrive. And so the app is created from my heart with so many cyber professionals that I love who have shared their stories and based in science. And I just love continuing to support the community in whatever way I can. So.
We certainly commend you on that. And very briefly, could you talk us through some of the features of the application? How easy is it to access and sort of utilize and transition through?
It's very easy. It's fun too. We have a ton of users and we've gotten great feedback, which is so cool. And we're doing like a beta test, but I think it's $5 a month, but people can also just do it for free. If you email me, we're trying to get the word out there more than anything else. But yes, it's really cool. You basically log in, you get it's like 110 mini modules that span, they're like 2-minute practices. So like some of the practices that I took us through, the humming and like the mindful check-in, they're super targeted to what cybersecurity people need and want in different situations. So like how to stave off pessimism when you've just faced XYZ attacks. And then there's like 5 little mini modules for that. I mean, it's like a combo of like a video and interactive stuff and scripting and a little practice that you take away. And so it's super like behavior driven and skills based. At professional conferences, like the pros and cons of like, should I monitor my drinking? Because a lot of people at cybersecurity get nervous and then drink too much and then are like, oh my gosh, I made this mistake. And so, in a professional settings, okay, like should I monitor my drinking? What are some tools? Like they're really super focused on the field and it's so fun. And then I get to get feedback from folks who use the app who say like, this was so relevant or like, I didn't like this. Like that was kind of weird and modify it. So it's like kind of a community effort, to be honest. And really fun.
Yeah, and I've looked at the app. Some of our colleagues have looked at it as well, and it is really engaging. And I think those micro doses of learning, I think, will really resonate with people moving forward. I know Jay and yourself have spoke about this off cam, but it's certainly something that we're going to be introducing to some of our community members moving forward. And look, as a founder yourself, you've dealt with other C-suite and other founders. What advice and guidance would you give founders, more broadly speaking, not necessarily those in the cybersecurity remit, but more broadly speaking?
Take care of yourself. That we talk about metrics and moving forward. And one of the key metrics that is so important to have in place and establish is your personal metrics. Like, how will you know what do you care about in life? Like you mentioned, Warren, going to the gym and like feeling that sense of reward. So like I could imagine for you metrics around personal reward, physical exercise, maybe physical health. Jay, you've talked about like feeling like sometimes maybe your detail orientation or some rigidity and questions coming up around, am I too structured? Thinking about like, okay, like maybe I'm missing certain aspects of spontaneity in life. What might be like a key metric for me to put here? How will I know if I achieved it? I think putting in those personal well-being and like personal life metrics is so important to running a sound business that's based on your values and goals.
No, absolutely. And look, it's clear you're incredibly passionate about what you do, and it's also evident that the industry needs more people like you in it, Dr. Sara. I think, it's been a tremendous episode. Love listening to you. Some fantastic insight and some great tips. And for any of our listeners who want to stay connected beyond this episode, where else can they reach out to you?
Oh, they can reach out to me on email, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I put educational videos on there. Where else? PacificMindful.com. There's no like formal channels other than that. I can post them to the, would it be the chat or the network or?
We'll leave some stuff in the description as well, as obviously as the community platform. And in the future, I know we spoke about off cam, you're going to be rejoining us with some live stream panel discussions, give an opportunity for tech and security leaders to engage with you in real time and experience your brilliance. So we are looking forward to that.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it too. And I had such a fun time chatting with you too. And thank you for like sharing your personal insights too. And, it's so nice to like get to know you in this context and explore this together because, we're doing it from the ground up together and trying to just protect the folks who and support the folks who protect this world.
And I'm sure there'll be more collaborations as Warren's touched on. So look, Doctor, I'd like to say thank you. I'm sure the community and all our listeners will have found a huge amount of value in today's episode. As always, to continue the discussion for more sustained engagement, we invite you to join the community where we offer a range of solutions for both tech and security professionals at no cost. Expansive community access, cross-sector mutual mentoring programs, online networking sessions, exclusive interviews such as this, and coming up later in 2025, panel discussions and masterclasses. To learn more and gain access to the secure Cyber Connect community and any of our initiatives, please visit secure-recruitment.com/cyber-connect/. Thank you.
If you're struggling with cultural, technological, or talent acquisition challenges, reach out to the Secure Cyber Connect team, where we offer advice and guidance, and we're here to help.